Abig wasn't just any shoemaker. He was the pride of his village. His craftsmanship had been passed down through generations. No one could create sandals as durable and comfortable as his. Every step in his shoes felt like walking on soft moss. People from faraway villages would come to order shoes from him. But as his skill grew, so did his pride. He loved to boast. My sandals will outlast the rain, the sun, and even the earth itself. I am the greatest shoemaker on the entire continent. That confidence was evident in his every move. His strong hands held the tools with certainty, and his eyes gleamed with self-satisfaction. People respected Abig, but many whispered that his pride had grown too great. At the very edge of the village, near the forest, lived Naira, a woman everyone believed to be mad. No one knew how old she was. She rarely spoke to anyone from the village. She wore strange, colorful rags that hung in tatters, and bracelets on her wrists clinked as if made from ancient bones. Long ago, there were rumors that Naira had been a great healer, but now she was seen as dangerous and wicked. Children were frightened with stories that she could curse anyone who dared step onto her land. She's a witch, the elders would say around the fire. She brings evil with her. But Abig would wave off the rumors. Witch, shaman, whatever she may be, no one can affect me. I am the master of my own fate. It was as if Naira sensed the challenge, for she soon appeared at his workshop. Her arrival was unexpected. She stood in the doorway, her eyes gazing at Abig as if she knew him better than he knew himself. Abig, the great master, her voice was quiet, yet there was a strength in it. Repair my sandals. I've traveled far, and they are completely worn out. Abig glanced at her feet and saw the old, worn-out sandals. They were simple, the kind worn by the poor. He smirked with disdain. Your sandals are just like you. Abig's voice dripped with mocking superiority. Old and unreliable. But I can make you new ones if you've got the money. Naira didn't respond to his mockery. Slowly, she raised her hand, her fingers adorned with rings etched with strange symbols, and touched the workbench. I won't pay you with money. Her eyes locked onto his. I'll give you something far more valuable than gold, something that will change your fate forever. Abig laughed. He was used to people coming to him with strange requests, but this one was especially absurd. I have no need for your mythical gifts, woman. All I want is gold or goods. Nothing more, nothing less. Naira watched him closely, as if expecting him to reconsider. But when it became clear that Abig would not budge, she calmly replied, Very well. Make me the sandals as I ask, and we shall see what happens next. Abig nodded, unaware of the hidden threat in her words. He took Naira's old sandals and began his work. The process felt routine: leather, knives, needles, and thread. But with each stitch, he sensed something shifting in the air around him. Sounds grew muffled, and the light in his workshop seemed to dim. Still, Abig paid no attention. His pride wouldn't allow him to doubt his own craftsmanship. When the sandals were ready, Naira returned. She tried them on and looked at Abig with the same enigmatic expression. Good work, she said softly. But remember, everything in this world comes with a price. You've chosen yours. With those words, she vanished, leaving Abig bewildered. He merely scoffed, dismissing her words as nothing more than empty threats from a strange woman. However, in the days that followed, his life began to change rapidly. One morning, he awoke with a strange sensation in his stomach. At first, he assumed it was the result of the previous night's feast, but the feeling didn't subside by evening. Instead, it grew stronger. With each passing day, his stomach swelled. By the end of the week, Abig could no longer bend down to reach his tools, and his belly had grown so large that he resembled a pregnant woman. He tried to hide his condition, but soon the villagers noticed. Whispers spread like wildfire through dry grass. People began to avoid his workshop, fearing that Abig had been cursed by spirits. His pride, once so strong, began to crack. "What is happening?" he asked himself over and over. "Why is my belly growing?" But the more he sought an explanation, the more hopeless his situation became. When Abig's belly swelled to an unnatural size, he could no longer deny the obvious. Something terrifying and inexplicable was happening to his body. Panic gripped him. Realizing he could no longer hide his condition from the villagers, he went straight to the local healer, an old shaman named Kalonga. Abig knew that if anyone could help him, it would be Kalonga. Kalonga was a wise and silent man, rarely showing his emotions. For many years he had healed both people and animals, knowing all the local herbs and incantations. But when he saw Abig and his enormous belly, his face stretched in astonishment. "You look like a pregnant woman, Abig," he exclaimed, running his old yet steady hands over the swollen belly. "It's all Naira," he cried. "She cursed me. I'm sure this is her witchcraft." Kalonga remained silent for a long time, frowning, and then let out a heavy sigh. "This is not just ordinary witchcraft, my friend. This is very dark magic. Magic that digs deep into the core of your being. You must be careful, Abig. This may be a trap far deeper than you realize." Kalonga's words only deepened the cobbler's anxiety. He couldn't believe how his once calm and orderly life had turned into a nightmare. Unsure whom to trust, he felt as though the ground beneath his feet was crumbling. In despair, he begged Kalonga for help, but the old man simply shook his head. "I cannot lift this curse," he said quietly. "But there is one who can, the very one who placed it upon you." A wave of anger surged within Abig. He had always been a man who believed in his own strength, in his craftsmanship, and in his independence. And now he was being told he must seek out the one who had ruined his life? It was humiliating, but he had no other choice. "Find her," Kalonga whispered, "and learn why she did this." Abig stormed through the village and its surroundings, questioning anyone he could. But people only averted their eyes or shot him mocking glances as they noticed his enormous belly. After days of searching, he finally found Naira in a small abandoned house on the edge of the forest. When he burst inside, fury consumed him. Naira was sitting by the window, quietly humming an ancient tune. Her calm and distant demeanor only fueled Abig's rage further. "You cursed me," he shouted, barging into her home. "You did this on purpose, you mad witch. Now I'm pregnant. Give me back my life." Naira slowly turned her head, her eyes glinting. But she didn't look frightened. On the contrary, there was a strange mixture of curiosity and hidden amusement in her gaze. "I didn't curse you, Abig," she said softly but with conviction. "You did this to yourself. You chose your fate." "Rubbish," he yelled. "I'm a man. I can't be pregnant. It's your evil magic that turned me into a laughingstock." Naira rose from her seat, her movements smooth and predatory, like a hunter approaching its prey. She stepped so close that Abig could smell her. An earthy blend of herbs, smoke, and something ancient, something magical. You thought you were better than others, she said, locking eyes with him. You drew your strength from your own arrogance. But what if I told you that it is not me, but your pride that has led you here? Abig froze, her words piercing his heart like a cold wind. He felt something within him begin to stir, but he couldn't bring himself to admit it. His anger was stronger than his doubts. You speak in riddles, he barked, taking a step back. Just take it all back. But Naira did not retreat. She stepped even closer and spoke in a quiet yet commanding voice. I gave you power, but not the kind you expected. Your body carries not just a child, but the embodiment of your pride and weakness. You will not be free until you understand that the true challenge lies not in defeating someone else, but in conquering yourself. Her words sounded to Abig like a sentence. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Something inside him protested, refusing to acknowledge the truth. Yet his pride, which had always been his support, was now cracking. I won't lose, he shouted, waving his arms. I'll find a way to get rid of this. Naira simply smiled. Her smile was gentle, yet it carried a strength that Abig could not comprehend. Keep fighting if you wish, she said. But remember, the longer you resist, the more it will grow inside you. With those words, she turned and left, leaving Abig standing alone in the empty house. His anger began to shift into despair. What did this mean? How could he conquer himself? He had always believed his strength lay in his hands and craftsmanship, but now all of it seemed useless against the curse placed upon him. Confused, Abig left Naira's home and headed to the village elders, hoping they could offer him some guidance. The village shaman, a wise man named Kabo, listened to him in silence. When Abig finished his tale, Kabo sat in contemplation for a long while, then spoke. This is a trial not given to you by Naira, but by life itself. You were so sure of your strength and superiority that you couldn't see your own weaknesses. Now you must learn to accept what you cannot control. Abig felt his pride slipping further away. Those words weighed heavily on his heart, like stones. He didn't know how to cope with this, but one thing was clear. There was no turning back. For the entire next week, Abig couldn't find peace. His thoughts raced like wild animals trapped in a snare. Each day his belly continued to swell, and his strength faded. He tried to work, but he was too weak to hold his tools. The villagers began to distance themselves from him, whispering behind his back and mocking him, yet avoiding his gaze when they crossed paths. The once self-assured, proud cobbler had become a man broken by unknown forces. One night, as darkness settled over the village and the cold wind drove dust through the empty streets, Abig fell into a restless sleep. In this dream, he found himself in a strange place, a silent desert where there was neither sun nor moon nor stars. Suddenly, a giant lion with human eyes appeared before him, a strange, eerie creature whose amber gaze seemed to know all his secrets. You seek answers, the lion spoke, its voice deep like the roar of a distant ocean. Who are you? Abig asked, his voice trembling with fear and curiosity. I am the spirit of the desert, the lion replied. I am the one who placed within you what you carry, and I have come to reveal the truth to you. Abig recoiled in shock. I carry your child within me? This cannot be true. I'm a man. The lion gazed intently at him, its eyes glowing with a mysterious light. You misunderstand. This is not a child in the usual sense. It is your pride, your blind belief in your superiority. You forged this burden yourself, and it has grown with every step, with every boastful word, with every refusal to accept that there are forces greater than you in this world. But why me? Abig cried out, his voice breaking with despair. I did nothing to deserve such a punishment. The lion growled softly, almost in mockery. Every step you've taken, every thought, every sneer at the weakness of others has led you to this moment. You always considered yourself better than everyone else. But now, you carry within you that which will shatter your pride. Abig felt his heart race. He wanted to protest, to say that this was all a mistake, but every word from the lion cut into him like a knife, stripping away the truth. His eyes, burning with fear, were fixed on the lion. But how can I rid myself of this? He whispered. I cannot live like this. The lion approached him, its eyes shining even brighter. You must find someone who can accept your weakness and share it with you. Only then can you find your freedom. But first, you must acknowledge that you are capable of many things. You can be a master of your craft, but you are not all-powerful. With those words, the lion vanished, leaving Abig alone in the desert. Upon waking, Abig realized that this dream was not merely a figment of his imagination. It was a message, the key to his liberation. The next morning, he went back to the shaman Cabo, hoping for an explanation. Cabo greeted him with a serious expression, already knowing that this visit would not be ordinary. I had a dream, Abig began, lowering his gaze as if ashamed of his words. There was a lion, the spirit of the desert. It told me that I must find someone who will share my weakness in order to be free. But I don't understand what that means. How can I find this person? Who can share with me what I can't even explain? Cabo was silent for a long time, stroking his long gray hair as if pondering the words he needed to say. You are searching for someone who can accept your weakness. He finally spoke. But this person is not who you expect. They are not a sage, a healer, or a warrior. It is someone who has always been nearby, but you have not noticed them. Abig furrowed his brow, puzzled about whom the shaman could mean. He thought about his friends, the people he had helped, those who had come to him for advice. But no one seemed to fit. I don't understand, he said. How can I find this person if I don't even know who they are? Cabo stood up and looked at him with understanding. You have always relied on your strength and skill. But what if the one who can help you is weaker than you? What if this person is someone you have always considered insignificant? These words struck Abig like a revelation. Images of people he had despised or underestimated began to surface in his mind. He remembered a young apprentice named Lemu, whom he had always regarded as clumsy. Lemu often tried to learn from Abig, but the cobbler had never taken him seriously, mocking his awkwardness and inability to work with leather. Abig realized that he had to seek help from Lemu, even though his pride screamed against it. He felt it was humiliating to turn to someone he considered weak. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Abig arrived at Lemu's humble hut. The young apprentice was surprised to see his teacher at the doorstep. Abig, what happened? Lemu asked, noticing how exhausted Abig looked. Abig sighed heavily, trying to suppress his inner resistance. Lemu, I need your help, he said, barely meeting the young man's gaze. Lemu was taken aback, but seeing Abig's state, he immediately agreed to help. They sat together by the hearth, and Abig began to share his curse, the strange dream with the spirit of the desert, and how his salvation now depended on sharing his burden with another person. Lemu listened intently, his eyes filled with compassion and understanding. "I have always admired you, Abig," he said quietly. "You were a model of strength and skill for me, but I never thought you could also need help." Abig felt something inside him crack. Lemu's words hit home. He realized he had spent his life hiding his weaknesses behind walls of pride, afraid of appearing vulnerable. But now he understood that accepting his weaknesses and seeking help was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. "I'm ready to help you," Lemu said, placing a hand on Abig's shoulder. "Together, we will overcome this curse." With those words, they sat by the fire, and Abig felt the weight slowly beginning to lift. Lemu may not have possessed the power of a shaman or the knowledge of a healer, but his sincere desire to help and support became the key that freed Abig from the curse. By morning, Abig felt his belly begin to shrink, and his body felt lighter. The curse that had been placed upon him vanished, taking with it the pride that had caused all his troubles. When the first rays of the sun broke through the windows of Lemu's hut, Abig felt almost like his old self. His body was once again his own. His belly had noticeably shrunk, and his strength was beginning to return. But something in him had changed forever. He no longer felt like the proud, invincible shoemaker who walked through the village with his head held high, believing he was above everyone else. Instead, he felt humility and gratitude. "Thank you, Lemu," Abig said quietly, sitting by the hearth and watching the flames slowly die down. "You've helped me more than you can imagine. I've been blind my whole life. But you've shown me that true strength isn't in always winning, but in acknowledging one's vulnerability." Lemu blushed but smiled. "I just did what felt right. I've always known you were strong, Abig, but seeing you as a person who can ask for help showed me that you're actually stronger than you seemed." With these words, they decided to head to the village. When they arrived at the village market, people didn't recognize Abig. No one could believe their eyes when they saw that the shoemaker's belly had disappeared, and he looked strong and healthy once again. Questions about how he had managed to lift the curse poured in, but Abig merely waved them off, not wanting to delve into the details. Meanwhile, the rumors of Abig's liberation from the curse began to spread rapidly throughout the village. People speculated about how he had managed to overcome the magic, each with their own version. Some said he was healed by the shaman. Others believed the spirits had taken pity on him, while some were convinced it was merely a strange illness. However, in Abig's heart, there was no longer a desire to prove anything to those around him. He understood that the true victory lay not in lifting the curse, but in transforming himself. A few days later, Abig decided to visit Naira again. He was no longer overwhelmed by hatred or fear of this woman. Instead, he felt a strange sense of gratitude. Naira still lived in her abandoned house on the edge of the forest, and when Abig knocked on the door, she opened it with the same enigmatic smile on her face. "You've come again," she said calmly, looking into his eyes. "So have you found the answers?" "Yes," replied Abig, his voice filled with confidence, but not the proud confidence he had known before. "You didn't curse me, Naira. You gave me a trial that I needed to go through, and I am grateful for it." She nodded slightly, her eyes glowing with a warm light. You finally understood. No one can curse us but ourselves. We carry our own demons within us. But when we accept them and learn to let go, we free ourselves. Abig realized that Naira was not just a woman with magical powers, but a keeper of ancient wisdom that he had been unable to see behind his fear and anger. I understand this now, he said with gratitude. But why did you do this? Why did you choose me for this trial? Naira smiled but did not answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer to him and quietly said, because there has always been strength in your heart, but you didn't know how to use it. Your trial was not to defeat me or anyone else. It was to defeat yourself. Now you are free. With these words, Naira turned away, and Abig realized that he no longer needed explanations. Everything he needed, he had already found within himself. By accepting his past and weaknesses, he gained something greater, a true strength that does not depend on how others perceive him. Abig became a shoemaker again, but now his craft was filled with new meaning. He no longer worked for recognition or praise. His joy lay in the process itself, in creating something useful and good. People continued to whisper about him, but they no longer laughed or mocked. On the contrary, those seeking support and wise counsel began to gravitate toward Abig. He learned to listen, to help, and to see in others not weakness but potential for growth. In the end, his story became a legend. The wisdom that was revealed to him through suffering and trials was passed down from generation to generation. And everyone who heard it understood that true strength lies not in avoiding one's weaknesses, but in learning to accept them, transforming them into a source of support. May your life be full of joy and limitless possibilities. Thanks for watching. Be sure to share your opinion and don't forget to write a comment. Subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.